According to the National Alliance on Mental Health, 1 in 5 adults in the U.S. experience a mental illness. That is about 51.5 million people. Today, we will be talking about mental health disorders, a little bit of what they entail, and how common they are. We need to destigmatize mental health disorders in order for people to get treated and not feel so helpless and tied down to their disorders. We will be talking about 5 types of disorders. We will also be discussing some statistics, and lastly, we will talk about some of the causes and ways we can help. So there are way too many disorders to talk about them individually. So I've chosen 5 main categories. One of the categories is anxiety, and this usually entails panic disorders, OCDs, phobias. Usually with an anxiety disorder, people feel fear, dread, uneasiness, restlessness. Some other symptoms include anxious thoughts that interfere with their daily life, aches and pains, dizziness, shortness of breath, and change in behavior. Symptoms don't go away. They usually get worse over time. The next category are mood disorders. This usually includes depression and bipolar disorder. Mood disorders usually affect everyday emotional state. For example, bipolar disorder is extreme change in a mood, thought, energy, and behavior. Usually can last hours, days, weeks, and even months. Mood disorders usually experience loss of interests. Next category are eating disorders, which include bulimia, binging, and anorexia. Eating disorders are usually severe problems with thoughts about food and eating habits. Eating disorders affect the body's ability to get the proper nutrition it needs. Binging is when you continue to eat even after you're full. You usually experience guilt, shame, and distress after you binge. On the other hand, bulimia nervosa is periods of binging and then purging, which is making yourself throw up. People with bulimia usually also over-exercise. Next, we're moving on to PTSD, which gets its own category, and it is post-traumatic stress disorder. Usually develop this after an experience to a traumatic event or you witnessed a traumatic event, usually life-threatening, but some cases not dangerous. For example, if you're in a school shooting and you are safe, it was a life-threatening situation, but you were in no danger. The next category is personality disorders. These are usually long-term patterns of thoughts and behavior that are unhealthy and inflexible. You can have a mild or severe case of a personality disorder, and with personality disorders, usually people have trouble realizing that they have a problem. So now that we have some basic knowledge on some disorders, let's talk about some statistics. Statistics vary on many factors. We're going to try to focus on gender. So according to the National Institute of Mental Health website, 20.6% of U.S. adults have a mental health illness, and it's usually higher for females at 24.5% to males, which is 16.3%. So since we're talking about percentages, I want to put it into perspective for you. There are 325 million people in the United States, so 1% is about 1.6 million people. Our most common disorder, which is anxiety, with 19.1% of adults experiencing anxiety disorder. Males have 14.3%, while females is 23.4% that experience it. For mood disorders, there's 4.4 4% of the US population that experience some kind of disorder. For eating disorders, there's a 2.2% of people overall who experience it. Males experience it less at 0.8% and females at 1.6%. So next is PTSD. There's a 3.6% overall who experience it. There is a 5.2% of females who experience it and a 1.8% of males who experience it. Now, for personality disorder, there was actually no sex or race associated with prevalence, so 9.1% overall of people experience a personality disorder. So now that we have talked about some of the statistics, let's talk about some of the causes. So there are many causes, and not all of the causes that I will mention fit into every single disorder. All of these causes came from the the Medline Plus website, and so did all these statistics. So genes and family history are a big part of the cause for a mental health disorder. Also, life experiences like a lot of stress and a history of abuse, whether that's mental, physical, or emotional. And the mother's exposure to a virus or toxins while she was pregnant is also a big cause. The use of alcohol and drugs is another cause. There's also serious medical conditions like cancer that can cause mental health issues, but not always. And lastly, biological factors like chemical imbalances in the brain cause mental health disorders. Now, some ways to help, it depends again on the disorder, but I think the most important one is educating ourselves and really knowing or trying to understand what people are going through. This is, in my opinion, I think starting a conversation is very important to help, because we give a voice to the people that have mental health illness. We have to be respectful of their choice to share and how much they share and their symptoms. We can't make any assumptions because everybody experiences things differently. So we just have to be very respectful of what they're saying and really listen. We have to give them an opportunity to talk about what they experience and how they feel and how we can help, what they need us to do to help them. We need to avoid criticizing them or blaming them because it is not their fault. This is not something they can control. Also, not making assumptions or patronizing them. They know best. They live with this illness every single day of their life. So we need to really listen and be respectful of them and their choices. So today we learned about some of the common types of mental health disorders. We talked about some statistics, and lastly we talked about some of the causes and ways to help. I hope we got a better understanding of mental disorders and how common they really are. Like I said earlier today, 19.1%, that is more than 20 million people who experience an anxiety disorder. People need to be able to feel safe to talk about it. It's important to talk about it so that people can get the help that they need, the treatment that they need. Mental health disorders are not something to be ashamed of. It is not something we can control. Everyone should be able to talk about how they feel and their symptoms without feeling like they're crazy and being labeled crazy. In my opinion, being healthy is not just about taking care of your body, it's also taking care of your mind. And we can't do that with all the stigma around mental health and talking about mental health. So I really encourage all of us to really do our research and try to help our community in any way that we can. Thank you.